Hello, love, and welcome to the final bonus episode before the official Back to Center with Sarita podcast launches in January 2023. So what you're about to receive here is just a tad more information about the podcast. So if you are new here, do not worry. You actually have not really missed that much. The last informational episode, I talked to you about the logistics behind Back to Center and what to expect from it regarding guests and release time, etc. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you why coming back to center is so important, and I'm going to give you a save the date. So make sure to bring out your pencil and paper a little bit later on so you can jot down some information. So if you're joining me for the first time, I am your host, Sarita. I like to call myself a soul care, mindset, and empowerment coach because I love anything around self-love, healing, and mindset. And you may recognize me under my social media handles at Sarita Wellness because I love to support anything well-being lifestyle. That includes emotional, physical, and spiritual. Okay, so enough about me. My story is going to be coming out January. You're going to get to know me so much better as time goes on. But today, the reason I'm doing this bonus episode is to really allow you to understand what it means, what I mean by coming back to center and why it's important. So you may be asking, okay, I kind of sort of get the name Back to Center, but what does it exactly mean? So simply put, back to center means coming home to self and being with self in those moments when you need yourself the most. And being in the place where you love yourself regardless of who you have been, where or who you are now, and who you are becoming. So it's this really amazing transformation and loving yourself through the whole entire process. Really about healing and empowerment. So backing up a little, like I mentioned in the initial bonus episode, I was really, really nervous about coming up with a name that actually landed with me because I was just tossing around so much. So before starting this podcast for over a year, and some of you may remember this because I was doing this for over a year, I was doing an Instagram live every single Monday. I think I did it for 62 weeks. And originally I had thought, while I was doing that Instagram live, I loved calling it a talk show, that I was going to take that name and transfer it over into the podcast platform. But then I got to around the 50-some 2 weeks, and I realized that even though I liked the name originally, it just was not sitting with me right anymore. Have you had that happen before? Just something doesn't sit with you as well as when you initially picked it up. Maybe a purse, maybe an article of clothing. But I realized that it just wasn't sitting with my soul. And I still wanted to share so much with my audience. So guess what I did? Like the perfectionist personality that I am trying really diligently to heal from, I ended up putting off the podcast because I wasn't feeling good about the effing name. Can you believe that? I think that's something that we do all the time. Us perfectionists, people that have imposter syndrome, I'm talking about myself, by the way, we just have this belief way down that things are just not going to work out the way that we want them to. And we get so caught up on these little effing details. And so the podcast name was blocking me from moving forward. If you think about it, it's very silly, but that's what was happening. So this podcast is quite some time in the creation. So by taking the action and sharing this with you, I'm telling you that I'm working through these identities that I've held so dear to me for so long. I just decided, I was like, I am just going to lean into fear. I'm going to lean into the fear of the fear of it not working out the way that I want to. And so I took some time to meditate and focus on what the podcast would make me feel. And so for some of you that are like totally into human design, like I'm an emotional authority, so it's all about riding that wave. But I'm a visual person. I'm a non-specific manifestor, and so I'm a visual person. I'm all about the emotion and the feeling. And so I realized, what is the outcome that I'm trying to attain by having a podcast? And so I realized, I was like, you know what? The things that I desire to have is like the freedom, the liberation, the flow, the excitement, sharing my voice, having a platform where I can actually do that. So after that, I went back into like overdrive controlling mode. And I was like, oh, let's come up with some names. So I tossed around the idea of spirituality with Sarita, or spiritual well-being with Sarita, or even my business name, the Sarita Wellness Podcast. And I was like, none of these names are fitting for me. And so I just decided, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to surrender it. I'm just going to let it go. It'll come, right? Like it'll come, it'll happen. Like literally that is the last thing that I need to worry about. Let me just figure out what it is that I want to create with the podcast. And one day I was doing a coaching session with some clients, and I said, before we start, let's come back to center. And I was like, oh my God, the light bulb went off, like ding, ding, ding. I couldn't believe how perfect the name of that podcast was. And I realized it actually, in fact, it's something that I say a lot and I don't even realize. When I'm leading meditations or helping a friend with like yoga, stretching, it's a phrase I say often to help us tune back into our breath and our body. And when I said it out loud, it rolled off my tongue so smooth that I literally at that moment envisioned myself behind the microphone, in like my microphone in hand, sharing my message back to center with Sarita. I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. So I really literally needed to take my own advice before when it came to like coming back to center and trusting myself and surrendering the process. So yeah, coming back to center is in those moments when you're having a rough day, need to tune in to what you need, go to your happy place, or just take a moment to ground yourself. It's remembering that phrase, come back to center. Coming back to center is tapping into your energy, our own powerful energy that we get bestowed to us on a daily basis, and taking a deep breath in and remembering we can always come back to it. As long as we live in this existence, in this body, in this life form, we can always depend on our breathing. So let's take one together right now. I just want you to take a deep breath in through your nose, filling up those lungs, and then breathing it out nice and slow, releasing the air from your breath. Doesn't that feel so much better? I feel better already. So that is my story of the back to center and why coming back to center is so important. So before I end this episode, I want to personally invite you to my launch party. This is where you need to get out your pencil and paper. Text it on your phone, write it down on your calendar. These 2 bonus episodes have basically been an appetizer, or a taste, if you will, of what is to come from my official podcast that's launching in January. The official launch date is January 2nd, 2023 at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm in California, Cali, San Diego. And guess what? We are having a launch party. At the exact same time the initial episode drops, we will be holding a launch party where you will have the chance to win a $1,000 Amazon gift card. In order to win that $100 Amazon gift card, you need to do 3 things. So pencil and paper, number 1, January 2nd, 2023, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is the launch party. Number 2, the 3 things that you must do in order to be a contender to receive the $100 Amazon gift card is, number 1, follow Sarita Wellness on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast, Back to Center with Sarita. You can do that on Apple, you can do that on Spotify, Google, YouTube. Number 3, write a review. It can be simple, it can be little, it doesn't have to be like paragraphs and paragraphs. Just anything that has been a takeaway from your last 2 listening sessions. I love getting feedback. I love feedback. Negative, positive, I love feedback. Feedback is really important to me. So doing these 3 things, you will have entered into the drawing for Back to Center with Sarita. Just a little recap. January 2nd, 10 a.m., 2023 Pacific Standard Time is the launch party. The 3 things you must do: follow me on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and write a review. Sound good? Any questions, feel free to reach out. I am so excited. So excited. Well, this concludes this inspirational bonus behind Back to Center with Sarita. When the podcast launches in January, my first episode will be about my personal story, so you will get to know me a little bit better. See you in the launch party in a few weeks. Until then, happy holidays, happy New Year, and keep on being the amazing you that you are.